Hired to pretend? She never meant to fall in love with the billionaire CEO *. Victoria Sterling stood in her cramped art studio, surrounded by canvases that represented 3 years of her life's work. Eviction notice crumpled in her trembling hands told the same story as the stack of unpaid bills on her desk. Her dream of becoming a renowned artist was crumbling faster than she could paint. At 28, Victoria had invested everything into her passion. Her small inheritance from her grandmother had funded this studio space in Brooklyn, but the money was gone. The paintings that covered every wall were beautiful, but unsold. Gallery owners dismissed her work as too emotional or commercially unviable. Bills piled up like autumn leaves, and reality was closing in. The sound of expensive shoes clicking on concrete stairs made her look up. A man in an impeccably tailored suit appeared in her doorway, looking completely out of place. In her bohemian workspace, his dark hair was perfectly styled, and his piercing blue eyes swept the room with calculating interest. "Miss Sterling?" "I'm Gabriel Hawthorne." The name hit her like lightning. Everyone in New York knew Gabriel Hawthorne, the 35-year-old tech mogul who had built Hawthorne Digital from nothing into a billion-dollar empire. His face graced magazine covers and business headlines regularly. What was he doing in her failing art studio? "I need your help," Gabriel said, his voice carrying the confidence of someone accustomed to getting what he wanted, "and I believe you need mine." Victoria set down her paintbrush, wiping her hands on her paint-stained apron. "I'm sorry, but I think you have the wrong person. I'm just an artist trying to make rent." Gabriel stepped closer, his presence filling the small space. "That's exactly why I'm here. I have a proposition that could solve both our problems." He gestured to the eviction notice still clutched in her hand. "I know about your financial situation. I also know you're talented, intelligent, and desperate enough to consider an unconventional solution." Victoria's cheeks burned with embarrassment. "How do you know about my problems?" "I make it my business to know things," Gabriel replied smoothly. "Here's what I'm offering. $50,000 for 1 weekend of your time." The number hung in the air between them like a golden lifeline. Victoria's heart raced as she processed what he had said. $50,000 would save her studio, pay her debts, and give her time to build her career properly. "What exactly would I have to do for $50,000? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Gabriel moved to examine one of her paintings, a vibrant piece depicting a woman breaking free from chains of shadow. "I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend for my family's annual charity gala this weekend. It's a simple performance, nothing inappropriate or compromising." Victoria stared at him in disbelief. "You want to pay me $50,000 too? Pretend to be your girlfriend for 1 weekend? My family has been pressuring me about marriage for years. They've arranged countless blind dates and social introductions, all with women who see me as a financial opportunity rather than a person. I told them I was seeing someone to buy myself some peace, but now they're demanding to meet her." Gabriel turned back to face her, his expression serious. "I need someone real, someone who won't be impressed by my wealth or intimidated by my family's social status, someone who can hold her own in conversation and make my story believable." Victoria's mind raced through the implications. The money would change everything, but the idea of deceiving an entire family felt wrong. "Why me? You could hire any actress in the city." "Because you're not an actress," Gabriel said simply. "You're genuine. I've been watching you for weeks, studying how you interact with people, how you defend your art against critics. You have a fire in you that can't be faked." The revelation that he had been watching her should have been creepy. But something in his tone suggested admiration rather than obsession. Victoria looked around her studio at the life she had built and was about to lose. "If I agree to this, what exactly would the weekend involve?" Gabriel's shoulders relaxed slightly, as if he sensed her wavering. "1 dinner with my family, the charity gala on Saturday night, and a family brunch on Sunday. We'll need to spend some time together beforehand to establish our story and make sure we're convincing as a couple." Victoria closed her eyes, weighing her options. Pride warred with desperation, but desperation was winning. $50,000? Transferred to your account the moment we return from the weekend. She opened her eyes and found Gabriel watching her intently. Despite his wealth and power, there was something vulnerable in his expression, as if he needed this arrangement as much as she did. "All right, Mr. Hawthorne, you have yourself a fake girlfriend." The next morning, Victoria found herself in the back of Gabriel's private car, heading toward the most exclusive shopping district in Manhattan. She had spent the night tossing and turning, alternating between excitement about the money and terror about what she had agreed to do. Gabriel sat beside her, looking impeccable in another expensive suit. He had traded his usual serious expression for something more relaxed. But Victoria could sense the tension beneath his calm exterior. "Tell me about your family," Victoria said, trying to push down her nervousness. "If I'm going to convince them we're in love, I need to know what I'm walking into." Gabriel's jaw tightened slightly. "My father, Richard Hawthorne, built his construction company from nothing. He's brilliant but demanding, with very specific ideas about success and family duty. My mother, Catherine, comes from old money. She's elegant, sharp, and has been planning my wedding since I was born." He paused, looking out the window at the city rushing past. "My sister Emma is getting married next month to someone she's known for 8 years. She's everything my parents wanted in a daughter, married to the right person, living the right life, making the right choices." Victoria heard the weight of expectation in his voice. "And you're the disappointment?" "I'm the son who built $1 billion company but can't seem to find a wife," Gabriel said with bitter humor. "In my mother's eyes, professional success means nothing without personal fulfillment, which to her means marriage and grandchildren." Their first stop was an exclusive boutique where a personal stylist named Margaret took one look at Victoria and immediately began pulling options. The prices on the tags made Victoria's stomach drop, but Gabriel waved away her concerns. "Consider it part of the costume," he said, settling into a plush chair with a cup of coffee. "We need you to look like someone who belongs in my world." An hour later, Victoria emerged from the dressing room in a stunning emerald green dress that hugged her curves before flowing into an elegant aligned skirt. The color brought out the green flecks in her hazel eyes. The cut was sophisticated yet alluring. Gabriel's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips as he took in her transformation. The simple jeans and paint-stained shirt had been lovely, but this dress turned Victoria into a vision of understated elegance. "Perfect," he managed, his voice slightly rough. "Absolutely perfect." Victoria felt heat rise in her cheeks at the intensity of his gaze. "Are you sure? It's so expensive?" "Trust me," Gabriel said, standing to get a better look. "You look exactly like someone I would fall in love with." The comment was meant to be part of their performance, but something in his tone made Victoria's heart skip. She turned to examine herself in the mirror, trying to ignore the way Gabriel's eyes followed her movement. Their next stop was an upscale salon where Victoria's long auburn hair was styled into soft waves that framed her face. The makeup artist enhanced her natural beauty with subtle touches, creating a look that was both sophisticated and approachable. As they sat in the salon, Gabriel began coaching her on their fictional relationship. "We met 4 months ago at a gallery opening in Soho. You were there exhibiting your work, and I was attending as a patron. We bonded over a discussion about contemporary art and its role in social commentary." Victoria nodded, filing away the details. "And how did our first date go? I took you to dinner at a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy. You ordered the seafood risotto and spent the entire meal talking about your latest painting. I was completely charmed by your passion. The specificity of the story surprised her." "You've really thought this through." "I've had weeks to plan," Gabriel admitted. "My family will ask detailed questions. They need to believe we're genuinely in love." As the afternoon progressed, they refined their story and practiced their chemistry. They were supposed to be a couple completely smitten with each other, which required a certain level of physical comfort that felt surprisingly natural. "My mother will want to know about our first kiss," Gabriel warned as they sat in a quiet corner of an upscale cafe. "What should I tell her?" Victoria felt her cheeks warm. "That it happened after our third date, when you walked me home from a poetry reading in Greenwich Village. You kissed me under the streetlight outside my building." "And what will you tell?" "Her about me? That you're nothing like what I expected from a billionaire CEO? That you're kind, intelligent, and surprisingly down-to-earth? That you make me laugh and challenge me to think differently about the world? Gabriel stared at her for a long moment. That's actually quite accurate, is it? Victoria asked, genuinely curious. What do you really like, Gabriel Hawthorne? Was quiet for a moment, considering her question. I wanted to be a teacher, he said finally. Before I took over the company, I spent 2 years getting my master's in education. I still volunteer at a literacy center in Queens every week. The revelation surprised her. Why didn't you pursue teaching? Family legacy is a powerful thing. My father built Hawthorne Digital for his children, and Emma has no interest in business. So I stepped up, put aside my dreams, and became the son he needed. Victoria felt a pang of sympathy for this man, who had everything but seemed to have. Sacrificed his happiness for duty. Do you regret it? I try not to think about it, Gabriel said, but his eyes held a sadness that made Victoria want to comfort him. As they prepared to leave for the Hawthorne family estate, Victoria found herself genuinely nervous. The $50,000 had made the decision easy, but now she was about to meet the family of one of New York's most powerful men and convince them she was madly in love with their son. The irony was that pretending to care about Gabriel was becoming easier with each passing hour. Beneath his wealthy exterior, she was discovering a man who was thoughtful, kind, and genuinely interesting. The real challenge wouldn't be convincing his family they were in love. It would be convincing herself that her growing feelings were just part of the performance. The Hawthorne estate sprawled across manicured lawns, like something from a fairy tale. Stone walls covered in ivy and warm light spilling from every window created an atmosphere of old-world elegance. As their car pulled up the circular driveway, Victoria felt her confidence waver. Remember, Gabriel said softly, taking her hand as they stepped out of the car, were completely in love, for months of pure happiness? The moment they walked through the front door, they were swept into a whirlwind of introductions. The charity gala was already in full swing, with nearly 200 guests mingling in the spacious reception rooms. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over designer gowns and perfectly tailored tuxedos. Gabriel? A woman's voice cut through the chatter. Victoria found herself face to face with Emma Hawthorne, the bride-to-be. She was tall and elegant with the same dark hair as her brother, but softer features. Her smile was genuine as she approached. Emma Gabriel embraced his sister warmly before turning to Victoria. I'd like you to meet Victoria Sterling. Victoria, this is my sister Emma, the mysterious girlfriend. Emma's smile widened as she extended her hand. I'm so thrilled to finally meet you. Gabriel has been ridiculously secretive about you. Victoria felt Gabriel's hand settle on the small of her back. A gesture that sent warmth spreading through her, despite knowing it was all for show. He's been just as secretive about all of you, she replied with a smile that felt surprisingly genuine. Well, you certainly know how to pick them, Emma said to her brother, her eyes twinkling with mischief. She's absolutely gorgeous. Before Gabriel could respond, an older couple approached them. Richard Hawthorne was distinguished and imposing, with silver hair and the same blue eyes as his son. Catherine Hawthorne was elegant and perfectly composed, with carefully styled blonde hair and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Victoria, darling, Catherine said, air-kissing both of Victoria's cheeks. You're even lovelier than Gabriel described, though he's been frustratingly vague about the details of your courtship. Mother, Gabriel warned, but his tone was affectionate. Nonsense. I'm simply getting to know the woman who's captured my son's heart. Catherine linked her arm through Victoria's, effectively separating her from Gabriel. Tell me, dear, how did you two meet? Victoria launched into their rehearsed story about the gallery opening, surprised by how easily the lies flowed. Catherine listened intently, asking pointed questions about Victoria's background. Her art and her intentions regarding her son. An artist, Catherine mused. How, bohemian. I suppose it's refreshing to see Gabriel with someone who has genuine passion for something other than quarterly reports. The backhanded compliment stung, but Victoria maintained her composure. That has always been my passion. Nice. There's something magical about creating something beautiful from nothing, about expressing emotions that words can't capture. Indeed, though I imagine it's not the most financially stable career choice. Before Victoria could respond, Gabriel appeared at her side, sliding his arm around her waist possessively. Mother, you're not giving Victoria the third degree, are you? Of course not, darling. Simply getting acquainted with this lovely young woman. Catherine's smile was perfectly pleasant. But Victoria caught the warning in her eyes as the evening progressed. Victoria found herself genuinely enjoying the challenge of playing Gabriel's devoted girlfriend. They moved through the party as a unit, his hand never leaving her back or arm, their conversation peppered with inside jokes and meaningful glances. You're a natural at this, Gabriel murmured in her ear as they took a moment's respite on the terrace overlooking the gardens. So are you, Victoria replied, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. Though I have to say your mother is a formidable woman. She likes you, Gabriel said, moving closer, so that anyone watching would assume they were sharing intimate conversation. If she didn't, you'd know it. Standing this close to him, Victoria could smell his cologne, could see the fine lines around his eyes when he smiled. He was devastatingly attractive, but more than that, he was genuinely kind and intelligent. Dance with me, he said suddenly, extending his hand as the string quartet began a slow waltz. The dance floor was crowded with other couples, providing the perfect opportunity for them to blend in while maintaining their loving facade. Gabriel's arms encircled her with surprising gentleness, one hand resting on her waist while the other held her fingers against his chest. They moved together, with an ease that belied their brief acquaintance, as if they'd been dancing together for years. Victoria found herself looking up into his blue eyes with an intensity that felt dangerously real. I can feel your mother watching us, Victoria whispered, very aware of how close they were. Then we'd better make this convincing, Gabriel replied, spinning her gracefully before pulling her back against his chest. The movement brought them even closer together, and Victoria found herself genuinely breathless. For a moment, the rest of the party faded away, leaving only the two of them moving. Together in perfect harmony, Victoria, Gabriel said softly, his voice rough with something that sounded like genuine emotion. Yes, thank you for this. I know it's not easy pretending to care about someone you barely know. The irony was that pretending was becoming increasingly difficult. With each passing hour, Victoria found herself genuinely drawn to this complicated man who had sacrificed his dreams for family duty. It's easier than you might think, she admitted, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Their eyes met and held. And for a heart-stopping moment, Victoria thought he might actually kiss her. The desire was written plainly on his face, mirrored by her own racing pulse. Then the music ended, and the spell was broken as other guests claimed their attention. Later, during a quiet moment in Richard's study, Victoria found herself alone. With Gabriel's father among the leather-bound books and family photographs. He's different when he's with you, Richard observed, settling into a wingback chair with a glass of brandy. Different how? Relaxed? Happy? Even? I haven't seen him smile this much in years. Richard studied her with kind eyes that reminded her strongly of his son. Whatever you're doing, it's good for him. The guilt hit Victoria like a physical blow. This kind man was genuinely pleased to see his son happy, and she was lying to his face for money. Mr. Hawthorne, she began, then stopped, unsure how to continue. Richard, please, we're going to be family soon enough, aren't we? Made Victoria's chest tighten with an emotion she couldn't name. Before she could respond, Gabriel returned, his expression tense from whatever business crisis he'd been dealing with. Sorry about that, he said, immediately moving to Victoria's side. Everything all right? Your father was just telling me embarrassing stories about your childhood. Victoria lied smoothly, though her smile felt strained. As the party began winding down, Victoria found herself dreading the end of the evening. It's not because she was enjoying the deception, but because she genuinely didn't want her time with Gabriel to end. Victoria woke up in the guest room of the Hawthorne estate, with sunlight streaming through silk curtains and the sound of birds chirping outside. For a moment, she forgot where she was and why she was there. Then reality crashed back, bringing with it a mixture of guilt and confusion about the previous evening. The charity gala had been a complete success. Gabriel's family had embraced her warmly, and their performance as a loving couple had been flawless. But somewhere during the evening, the line between performance and reality had begun to blur in ways that terrified her. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Victoria? Are you awake?" Gabriel's voice made her heart skip, which was exactly the problem. She was supposed to be immune to his charm, treating this as a simple business transaction. Instead, she found herself genuinely caring about this complicated. "Man, just a minute," she called, quickly throwing on the silk robe that had been provided with the room. When she opened the door, Gabriel stood there with a breakfast tray, looking casual in jeans and a white button-down shirt. "I thought you might be hungry," he said, his eyes taking in her tousled hair and the way the robe clung to her curves. "We have the family brunch in an hour, but I wanted to check on you first." Victoria stepped aside to let him in, acutely aware of how intimate this felt. Gabriel set the tray on the small table by the window, and she noticed he had remembered exactly how she liked her coffee from their conversation the day before. "How did you sleep?" he asked, genuinely concerned. "Fine." She lied, not wanting to admit that she had spent most of the night thinking about him. "Your family's lovely. I can see why you want to protect them from disappointment." Gabriel's expression grew serious. "It's about last night, ... I want to apologize if I made you uncomfortable. When we were dancing, I almost..." He trailed off, running a hand through his hair. Almost what? Almost forgot this was just pretend. The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Victoria felt her pulse quicken as she realized he had been feeling the same confusion she had. "Gabriel," she said softly, "what are we doing here?" "I don't know," he admitted, moving closer. "This was supposed to be simple. Okay. A business arrangement that would solve both our problems. But last night, when I saw how naturally you fit in with my family, how genuinely you seemed to care about them and about me, ... He stopped just inches from her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "I can't stop thinking about you, Victoria. I know that's not part of our deal." Victoria's heart raced as she looked up into his eyes. The smart thing would be to step back, to remind him that this was just a job. But she couldn't bring herself to do it. "I can't stop thinking about you either," she whispered. Gabriel's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheek. "What does that mean for us?" Before Victoria could answer, another knock on the door interrupted them. They sprang apart just as Emma's voice called out, "Victoria, are you ready for brunch? Mom's getting impatient." "Be right there," Victoria called back, her voice slightly breathless. Gabriel stepped toward the door, then paused. "We should talk about this. After brunch. After we get back to the city. This changes things." Victoria nodded, not trusting her voice. As Gabriel left, she sank onto the bed, her mind reeling. What had started as a simple business arrangement was becoming something much more complicated and dangerous. The family brunch was held on the sun-drenched terrace overlooking the gardens. Catherine had outdone herself with an elaborate spread of fresh fruit, pastries, and eggs Benedict. The conversation flowed easily, with Emma chattering about her wedding plans and Richard discussing his latest construction projects. "So, Victoria," Catherine said, delicately cutting her fruit. "Gabriel tells me you're having a showing at your gallery next month." Victoria nearly choked on her coffee. They hadn't discussed any upcoming shows, and she certainly couldn't afford to mount an exhibition. "It's still in the planning stages," she said carefully. "Wonderful. Richard and I would love to attend, wouldn't we, dear?" Richard nodded enthusiastically. "I've been wanting to learn more about contemporary art. Gabriel's always saying we should. Broaden our cultural horizons." The guilt was becoming unbearable. People were genuinely kind and welcoming, and she was deceiving them all. Victoria caught Gabriel's eye across the table and saw her own discomfort reflected in his expression. "Actually," Gabriel said suddenly, "Victoria has been having some challenges with her gallery space. The landlord is raising the rent significantly." Victoria stared at him, wondering where he was going with this. "Perhaps we could help," Catherine suggested immediately. "Richard knows several people in commercial real estate." "Oh no," Victoria said quickly. "I couldn't possibly... ... "Nonsense." Richard waved away her protests. "Family helps family. We'll make some calls, see what we can do." The word family hit Victoria like a physical blow. She excused herself to the restroom, needing a moment to compose herself. In the powder room, she stared at her reflection, seeing a woman who was drowning in lies and confusion. When she returned to the table, Gabriel was watching her with concern. Everything all right? Perfect, she lied, forcing a smile. The drive back to the city was quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts. The weekend had been more successful than either had dared hope. But it had also created complications neither had anticipated. The money will be in your account by tomorrow, Gabriel said as they pulled up to Victoria's building. Thank you, Victoria replied, though the words felt hollow. Gabriel walked her to the door. They stood in the lobby, suddenly awkward now that their performance was over. About what happened this morning, Gabriel began. It was just the situation, Victoria said quickly, trying to protect herself from the hurt she saw coming. Being in that environment, playing those roles, it's easy to get caught up in the fantasy. Gabriel's expression hardened slightly. So that's all it was? Fantasy. Victoria's heart screamed at her to tell the truth, to admit that her feelings had become real, but the rational part of her mind reminded her that she was a struggling artist from Brooklyn and he was a billionaire CEO. Their worlds were too different. What else could it be? She asked softly. Gabriel nodded curtly. You're right, of course. Thank you for your help this weekend, Victoria. Hope the money helps with your gallery. As he walked away, Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. She had gotten exactly what she wanted, enough money to save her dreams. So why did she feel like she had lost something precious? 3 weeks later, Victoria was in her studio, working on a new painting with renewed energy. The money from Gabriel had arrived as promised, allowing her to pay her debts and even plan a small exhibition. She should have been happy, but thoughts of Gabriel haunted her days and nights. She had thrown herself into her work, trying to forget the weekend that had changed everything. The painting she was working on was different from her usual style, softer, more romantic, with swirls of blue that reminded her of Gabriel's eyes. The sound of footsteps on the stairs made her look up, expecting her landlord, or perhaps a potential buyer. Instead, Gabriel appeared in her doorway, looking slightly out of breath and more casual than she had ever seen him, in jeans and a gray sweater. Gabriel? Victoria set down her brush, her heart racing. What are you doing here? I made a mistake, he said, stepping into the studio. Huge mistake. Victoria's pulse quickened, but she forced herself to remain calm. What kind of mistake? I let you walk away. Gabriel moved closer, his eyes intense. I let you convince me that what happened between us was just fantasy, just part of the performance. But I've spent 3 weeks thinking about you, Victoria. 3 weeks trying to forget the way you felt in my arms, the way you made me laugh, the way you fit so perfectly into my family. Victoria's hands trembled as she wiped them on her apron. Gabriel, we agreed this was just business. Forget the agreement, he said, reaching for her hands. I'm in love with you, Victoria. Really, truly in love. And I think you feel the same way. The words she had been longing to hear hung in the air between them. Victoria wanted to throw herself into his arms, to tell him that she had been miserable without him, that she had fallen in love with him too. But fear held her back. Your family, she said weakly. They'll know I lied to them. They'll understand, Gabriel said confidently. Emma already suspects something. She said no one falls in love that quickly unless they were already halfway there. Victoria stared at him, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. What are you saying? I'm saying that what started, as pretend became real somewhere along the way. I'm saying that I don't want to spend another day without you in my life. Gabriel dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Victoria gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Victoria Sterling, Gabriel said, his voice shaking with emotion. Will you marry me? For real this time?
Ow.
Tears streamed down Victoria's face as she looked at the man she had fallen in love with, despite every rational thought telling her it was impossible. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Gabriel slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her. And this time there was no pretense, no performance. Just two people who had found love in the most unexpected place. 6 months later, Victoria stood in the same gallery where she had first met Gabriel, but now it was transformed. Her paintings covered the walls, each one bearing a small red dot, indicating it had been sold. The opening night of her first solo exhibition was a complete success. "The artist looks radiant," a familiar voice said behind her. Victoria turned to find Catherine Hawthorne, elegant as always, holding a glass of champagne. "Thank you for coming, Catherine. It means everything to me." "I wouldn't miss it for the world," Catherine replied, her smile warm and genuine. "And I owe you an apology. I was rather cold to you at first. You were protecting your son," Victoria said. "I understand that now." "I was wrong to judge you," Catherine admitted. "You've made Gabriel happier than I've ever seen him. It's all a mother can ask for." Across the room, Gabriel was deep in conversation with a collector who was interested in Victoria's latest series. He caught her eye and winked, making her heart flutter just as it had that first night. Richard appeared at her elbow, beaming with pride. "Congratulations, dear. Gabriel tells me you've sold nearly every piece." "I can hardly believe it myself," Victoria admitted. "Believe it," Emma said, joining their group with her husband in tow. "You're incredibly talented. I'm so glad Gabriel found you," Victoria said, watching as Gabriel excused himself from his conversation and started walking toward her. "I think we found each other." Gabriel reached her side and slipped his arm around her waist in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing. "How's the star of the evening?" "Overwhelmed," Victoria admitted, "and grateful. This never would have happened without you." "You would have found a way," Gabriel said confidently. "You're the strongest person I know." Down, and the last guest departed. Victoria and Gabriel stood alone in the gallery, surrounded by her art. The space that had once represented her failures now showcased her success. "Any regrets?" Gabriel asked, pulling her into his arms. Victoria thought about the scared woman who had agreed to pretend to be his girlfriend just weeks ago, and the confident artist she had become. "None at all." "What about you?" "Only that." "I waited so long to tell you how I really felt," Gabriel said, leaning down to kiss her softly. "Well," Victoria said with a smile, "we have the rest of our lives to make up for lost time." As they turned off the lights and locked up the gallery, Victoria reflected on the strange journey that had brought them together. What had started as a desperate business arrangement had become the greatest love story of her life. Sometimes the best things came from the most unexpected places, and sometimes love could bloom even in the most unlikely circumstances. The fake romance had become beautifully, wonderfully real. The end SEO optimized YouTube title, "Fake Girlfriend" for $50,000. Billionaire CEO's secret deal goes terribly wrong when she actually falls in love. SEO optimized YouTube description. Watch this incredible romance unfold as struggling artist Victoria Sterling agrees to pretend to be billionaire. Gabriel Hawthorne's girlfriend for $50,000? What starts as a desperate business deal turns into something neither of them expected. From high society galas to family deceptions, follow their journey as fake love becomes real love in the most unexpected way. This captivating 5-part story will keep you on the edge of your seat as Victoria and Gabriel navigate the dangerous waters between pretense and genuine emotion. Will their fake romance survive when real feelings get involved? Find out in this heartwarming tale of love, money, and second chances. Hashtag fake girlfriend, hashtag billionaire romance, hash love story, hashtag romance, hashtag fake to real, hashtag money and love. Hashtag heartwarming, hashtag romantic story, hashtag true rove, hashtag billionaire love, hashtag pretend relationship, hashtag love conquest, hashtag storytime, hashtag romance 224, hashtag heartwarming tale AI image prompt for Leonardo AI. A stunning woman with auburn hair and an elegant emerald green evening gown standing next to a handsome man in a black tuxedo at a luxurious charity gala. Crystal chandeliers in the background, romantic lighting, they're gazing into each other's eyes with genuine emotion. High society event, cinematic quality, hyper-realistic. 1920 by 1080. Close-up shot capturing their chemistry and the tension between pretense and real feelings.